For 18 years, Riley knew her path: be a good daughter, a faithful follower, and someday, a wife. But when Isabel's stormy eyes and revolutionary heart offered a different future, Riley faced an impossible choice: the salvation of her family's love, or the sinful, glorious paradise she found in another woman's arms. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more lesbian stories. I'd really appreciate your support. Your encouragement helps me keep creating and sharing new stories every day. The color of pomegranates. The world, for Riley, was a simple place painted in two colors: the pure, clean white of righteousness and the sinful, warning black of everything else. Her world was also small, contained within the four walls of the House of Divine Light, the church her father, Pastor Michael, had built with his own hands and his booming voice. Riley's life was a rhythm of hymns, prayers, and Bible verses. Her friends were the other daughters of the congregation, girls who talked of future husbands and keeping a godly home. Riley tried to fit in, she really did. She wore her long, modest dresses and kept her honey blonde hair tied back neatly. But sometimes, when she was alone in the orchard behind their house, she would feel a strange ache inside her, a longing for something she couldn't name. It felt like a color was missing from her world. The orchard was her sanctuary. Their small town of Oak Haven was famous for its oranges, and the trees behind her house were heavy with them. Their bright, cheerful color was the only splash of something vibrant in her black and white life. But even they felt like a symbol of the simple, expected path: sweet, predictable, safe. One sweltering summer afternoon, a moving truck rumbled down their quiet, dusty street. Riley watched from her window as it stopped at the old Henderson place, which had been empty for years. A car followed, and out stepped a woman with short, silver hair and a warm smile. And then, from the other side, emerged a girl. Riley's breath caught in her throat. The girl was maybe her age, 18. She wore faded, ripped jeans and a black t-shirt with a band name Riley didn't recognize. Her hair was the color of dark cherries, cut short on one side and longer on the other, falling over one eye. But it was her laugh that truly captivated Riley, a free, unburdened sound that echoed in the still air, a sound Riley had never learned to make. Her name was Isabel, as Riley discovered from the church gossip that Sunday. Isabel and her grandmother, Clara, had moved from a big city up north. The whispers were filled with pity and suspicion. "No father figure," Mrs. Gable murmured. "And did you see the way the girl dresses? So worldly." Worldly was the church's word for dangerous. Riley was instructed by her mother to be a good example to the new girl. So, with a basket of her mother's freshly baked lemon bread, she walked across the street the next day, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. Isabel's grandmother answered the door, her smile genuine. "Oh, you must be Riley. Michael's daughter. Come in, dear, it's chaos in here, but welcome." The house was nothing like Riley's. Boxes were everywhere, but they were filled with fascinating things. Stacks of books with colorful covers, strange sculptures, and paintings that used colors Riley didn't even know had names. It was messy and alive. And then Isabel walked into the room, wiping dust from her hands onto her jeans. She looked at Riley, and her eyes, a startling shade of green-gray, like the sea before a storm, seemed to see right through her. "Hey," Isabel said, her voice a low, easy melody. "Hello," Riley replied, her own voice sounding small and formal. "I brought you this. As a welcome." She thrust the basket forward. Isabel took it, a small smile playing on her lips. "Thanks. Bread's good. You bake it?" "Oh, no. My mother did." Isabel nodded, still looking at her. "You live in the big white house with the porch?" "Yes. I saw you staring out the window yesterday." Riley felt her cheeks grow hot. She had been caught. Isabel didn't seem to mind. She just grinned. "Wanna get out of here? This dust is killing me. You can show me around." That was how it began. Their around was mostly Riley's orchard. It was the only place she felt she could go without raising suspicion. They would sit between the rows of orange trees, the sweet scent filling the air. Isabel was a universe Riley had never known. She talked about art, about music that had an angry, beautiful beat, about books where people fell in love in complicated ways. She talked about girls she thought were pretty in her old school. Riley would listen, her heart hammering against her ribs. The way Isabel talked about girls was so casual, so normal. To Riley, it was like hearing a secret language she suddenly realized she understood. "Isn't that a sin?" Riley asked one day, her voice barely a whisper, plucking a blade of grass and shredding it nervously. Isabel turned to her, her expression not angry, but thoughtful. "Who says?" "The Bible. My father. Everyone." "My grandma says love is the only thing that's real," Isabel said softly. "Everything else is just noise. She says sometimes people use religion to be afraid of things they don't understand." Riley looked at her hands. She had never heard anyone talk like that. It should have sounded blasphemous. Instead, it sounded like truth. Weeks passed. Their meetings in the orchard became the secret center of Riley's day. She lived for Isabel's laugh, for the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled, for the way she made the world feel bigger and brighter. One afternoon, a heavy rain started suddenly. They ran laughing through the trees, getting soaked, their clothes clinging to their skin. They ducked under the low, dense branches of an ancient, sprawling oak tree at the far end of the orchard, a place Riley had always thought of as her private chapel. The space was dry and hidden, the world outside a blur of grey rain. They were pressed close together, breathing heavily from their run. Riley could feel the heat from Isabel's body. Water dripped from Isabel's dark red hair onto her cheek. They were both laughing, but then they stopped. The air changed. It became thick and electric, like the moment before a lightning strike. Riley looked at Isabel's lips. She had never looked at anyone's lips before. She found she couldn't look away. Isabel's gaze was intense, searching Riley's face. "Riley," she whispered. And then, without thinking, without praying, without considering sin or righteousness, Riley leaned forward. It was the first brave thing she had ever done. She kissed her. It wasn't a long kiss, just a soft, tentative press of her lips against Isabel's. But it sent a shockwave through her entire body. It was like every hymn she'd ever sung had been leading to this single, silent note. It was like a door she never knew existed had swung open, flooding her black and white world with a blinding, beautiful spectrum of color. She pulled back, her eyes wide with terror and wonder. I'm so sorry," she stammered. Isabel didn't speak. She just brought her hand up and gently touched her own lips, as if checking to see if the kiss had been real. Then, she looked at Riley, and her stormy eyes were soft. "Don't be sorry," Isabel whispered. She cupped Riley's cheek, her thumb stroking away a raindrop. Her touch was so gentle it made Riley want to cry. "Please, don't ever be sorry for that." This time, Isabel kissed her. It was surer, warmer. It was a kiss that asked a question and promised an answer all at once. Riley's hands, which had been clenched at her sides, came up to clutch at Isabel's wet shirt. She kissed back, a shy, eager response that came from a place deep inside her she had just discovered. When they finally parted, they rested their foreheads together, breathing each other's air under the shelter of the tree. The rain drummed a steady rhythm on the leaves above them. "Wow," Isabel breathed. Riley could only nod. Her whole body was humming. That kiss was the beginning of a new, secret life. They found more places to be alone. An old, abandoned barn a few fields over became their palace. They spread an old blanket on the hay-strewn floor and would talk for hours, their fingers intertwined. The physical pull between them was a constant, humming energy. Every accidental brush of hands felt intentional. Every look felt like a touch. One evening in the barn, the setting sun casting long, golden beams through the cracks in the wood, they were lying side by side on the blanket. Isabel was tracing patterns on Riley's palm, sending shivers up her arm. "You have no idea, do you?" Isabel whispered. "Idea of what?" "How beautiful you are." Riley blushed, turning her face away. "I'm plain. I'm just me." Isabel gently turned Riley's face back towards her. "No. You're like a painting that's been kept in a dark room for too long. All these amazing colors are just waiting to be seen." She leaned down and kissed her again. This kiss was different. It was slower, deeper, filled with a heat that was new. Riley felt a surge of boldness. She opened her mouth slightly, and the kiss deepened into something breathtakingly intimate. A soft moan escaped her throat, a sound she didn't recognize as her own. Isabel's hands, which had been gentle on her face, began to wander. They slid down her neck, over her shoulders, coming to rest on her waist, pulling her closer. Riley could feel the firmness of Isabel's body against her own, the softness of her breasts pressing through their thin summer tops. A wave of heat, intense and unfamiliar, washed over Riley. It was a mix of desire and nervousness, a thrilling, terrifying feeling. Her own hands, trembling, moved from Isabel's back to the hem of her t-shirt. Her fingers brushed against the warm skin of Isabel's stomach. Isabel gasped against her lips. "Are you sure?" she whispered, her voice husky. Riley looked into her stormy eyes, seeing only care and want. She nodded, her voice lost to the pounding of her heart. "Yes, please." With a reverence that made Riley's heart ache, Isabel slowly pushed Riley's simple cotton dress up her thighs. The cool evening air on her skin was a shock, followed by the incredible warmth of Isabel's hand as it settled on her bare leg. Isabel kissed her way down Riley's neck, to her collarbone, while her hand gently stroked higher, under the dress. When her fingers finally, slowly, touched the damp center of Riley's underwear, Riley jerked, a sharp, surprised cry escaping her. "It's okay," Isabel murmured, kissing her jaw. "I've got you. Just tell me to stop and I'll stop." But Riley didn't want her to stop. She wanted this. She wanted her. She arched her back, a silent plea. Isabel understood. She gently slipped her hand inside Riley's underwear. The first direct touch was so electric, so overwhelming, that Riley saw stars behind her closed eyelids. She clutched at Isabel's shoulders as Isabel's fingers began to move, exploring her with a tender, patient curiosity. Riley had never felt anything like it. It was as if her body had been asleep her whole life and was only now waking up. Every nerve ending was on fire. The feelings built inside her, a tight, coiling pressure, guided by the rhythm of Isabel's touch and the soft, encouraging words she whispered into her ear. "You're so beautiful, Riley. Let go for me. I've got you." And then, it broke. A wave of pleasure, so intense it was almost unbearable, crashed over her. She cried out, her body shaking, clinging to Isabel as she rode the sensations, until she finally collapsed, breathless and trembling, into Isabel's arms. Tears welled in her eyes, not tears of sadness, but of overwhelming feeling. Of release. Of discovery. Isabel held her tightly, kissing her hair, her temple, whispering, "It's okay, I'm here." When Riley could finally speak, her voice was a ragged whisper. I didn't know it could feel like that." Isabel smiled, a beautiful, proud smile. "That's just the beginning." And it was. In the weeks that followed, they explored each other with a hungry wonder. Riley learned the map of Isabel's body, the freckle on her hip, the sensitive spot on her neck, the way she sighed when Riley's tongue traced the line of her stomach. She learned how to give pleasure as well as receive it, discovering a power and a confidence in herself she never knew she possessed. Their lovemaking wasn't just physical, it was their language. It was how they said everything they couldn't say out loud in the daylight. It was how Riley said, "You have freed me." It was how Isabel said, "You are my home." But their secret world couldn't stay hidden forever. Their paradise was built on a fault line, and it was only a matter of time before it cracked. It was a deacon from the church who saw them. They were walking back from the barn, their fingers linked, thinking they were safe in the twilight. They were laughing, and Riley, feeling brave, leaned in to steal a quick kiss. The sound of a car door slamming made them jump apart. Brother Thomas stood by his sedan, his face a mask of horror and disgust. He didn't say a word. He just got back in his car and drove away. The storm arrived that evening. Pastor Michael called Riley into his study, a room that usually smelled of old books and Polish. Tonight, it smelled of fury. "Is it true?" he thundered, his face purple. "Brother Thomas saw you. With that girl. Defiling yourself." Riley's blood ran cold. But a strange thing happened. The fear was still there, but underneath it was a new, solid core of strength. The strength Isabel had given her. It's not defiling, she said, her voice quieter than his, but steady. We love each other. The word love seemed to enrage him more than anything else. Love. That is not love. That is a sickness. A perversion. It is an abomination in the eyes of God. He preached at her for an hour, his voice hoarse with rage. He quoted scriptures she knew by heart. He threatened hellfire. He called Isabel a devil, a temptress sent to lead his daughter astray. Riley listened, but the words didn't pierce her heart like they used to. They just sounded like noise, just as Isabel's grandmother had said. Finally, her father finished, breathing heavily. You will not see her again. You will not speak to her. You will repent, Riley. You will pray until God cleanses this filth from your soul. He grounded her. He took her phone. He told her mother to watch her every moment. For 2 days, Riley was a prisoner in her White House. She watched from her window as Isabel stood on her porch, looking over, her face etched with worry. Riley's heart broke a little more each time. On the 3rd day, she saw Isabel's grandmother walk across the street and knock on their door. Riley listened from the top of the stairs. Michael. Clara's voice was calm but firm. Isabel is heartbroken. She cares for your daughter deeply. Stay away from my family, Clara, her father's voice boomed. Your granddaughter's influence ends today. This isn't about influence, Clara replied. This is about 2 young women who have found something beautiful in each other. Why must you turn it into something ugly? Get out, her father snarled. And know that your soul is in my prayers. The door slammed shut. Riley heard her father's heavy footsteps and retreated to her room. That was it. He had built a wall she couldn't climb. That night, as she lay in bed crying silent tears, she heard a soft tap 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 on her window. Her heart leaped. She rushed over and looked out. Isabel was there, standing in the flowerbed below, a determined look on her face. She mimed throwing something. Riley understood. She carefully, quietly, opened her window. Isabel tied a small rock to a piece of paper and threw it up. Riley caught it. She unfolded the note under the moonlight. Oranges are not the only fruit. Meet me in the orchard. Our tree. Now. Riley's heart hammered. It was impossible. Her father's study light was still on. He would hear her. But then she looked at Isabel's face, pale and hopeful in the moonlight. She thought of the barn, of the rain, of the colors. She thought of her life stretching out ahead of her in a dull, grey obedience. She made her choice. She moved like a ghost through the house, avoiding the creaky floorboard on the 3rd step. She slipped out the back door, into the cool night air, and ran. She ran past the rows of orange trees, their fruit pale and ghostly in the dark, towards the one tree that was truly hers. Isabel was there, waiting. They crashed into each other's arms, holding on as if their lives depended on it. I can't do it, Riley sobbed into Isabel's shoulder. I can't live without you. But I can't stay. Isabel pulled back, holding Riley's face in her hands. Then come with me. What? My grandma, she sees what this is doing to us. She has a sister in Cedar Springs, a few hours from here. She says we can go there. She says we can finish school there, be together, be safe. Riley stared at her, the idea too huge to grasp. Leaving her home, her family, everything she had ever known. Riley, Isabel said, her voice fierce with love. Your world doesn't have to be this small. It can be as big and as colorful as you want it to be. But you have to be brave. Please. Be brave with me. Riley looked back at the house, at the light in her father's window. It looked like a prison cell. She thought of a life lived in hiding, of denying the most real thing she had ever known. She thought of the oranges, the only fruit she was ever supposed to want. And she knew Isabel was right. There was a whole world of other fruit, other colors, other ways to live and love. She took a deep, shuddering breath. She looked into Isabel's eyes, seeing her future reflected there. It was scary, but it was bright. It was colorful. Okay, she whispered, her voice firming with resolve. Okay. I'll come with you. Isabel's face broke into a radiant smile. She kissed her, hard and full of promise. Pack a bag. Just what you need. Meet me back here in an hour. Grandma will be waiting down the road with the car. The next hour was a blur of silent, frantic movement. Riley packed a backpack with clothes, the small savings she had from birthdays, and a single photograph of her mother, smiling, from a time before her eyes held constant worry. She wrote a short note. Mom, Dad, I am not sick. I am not sinful. I am in love, and I am choosing to be happy. Please don't look for me. I love you. Riley. She left it on her pillow. With one last look at the room that had been her cage and her refuge, she slipped out the window and into the night. They held hands as they ran through the dark orchard for the last time. At the edge of the property, Clara's old sedan was idling quietly. She got out when she saw them and opened her arms. Riley hesitated for only a second before falling into them, crying. There, child, Clara said, her voice warm and steady. You're safe now. You're with family. They drove through the night. Riley watched her hometown disappear in the rearview mirror, a cluster of lights swallowed by the darkness. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but it was overshadowed by a soaring feeling of freedom. Isabel held her hand the entire way, her thumb drawing comforting circles on her skin. Cedar Springs was different. It was bigger, noisier, and full of people who didn't know her or care who her father was. Clara's sister, Agnes, was a warm, no-nonsense woman who ran a small bookstore and welcomed them with open arms and zero judgment. She had a spare room that became theirs. The first few weeks were adjustment. Riley felt like a newborn animal, learning to walk in a new world. Everything was unfamiliar, sharing a bed with Isabel every night, waking up to her smile, being able to kiss her hello and goodbye without fear. She got a job shelving books at Agnes's store, and she and Isabel enrolled in the local community college for the fall semester. One evening, a few months after they'd arrived, they were walking home from the movies. They passed a couple of women, older than them, walking hand in hand. One of them smiled at Riley and Isabel in a knowing, friendly way. Riley felt a jolt, not of fear, but of belonging. Later, in their small room, with the sounds of the city a gentle hum outside their window, Riley turned to Isabel. They were lying face to face on their bed, just looking at each other. I saw those women tonight, Riley said softly, holding hands. Isabel smiled. I know. I saw you. Seeing them. It felt normal, Riley said, the word feeling precious on her tongue. It felt like we were normal. Isabel reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind Riley's ear. We are normal, my love. This love. It's the most normal, natural thing in the world. She leaned in and kissed her. It started soft and sweet, but quickly deepened. The familiar heat bloomed in Riley's stomach. Months of safety and freedom had stripped away the last of her nervousness. Now, when they came together, it was with a confident, passionate hunger. Isabel rolled on top of her, straddling her hips, and broke the kiss to look down at her. The streetlight from outside cast a golden glow on her skin. I want to taste you, Isabel whispered, her voice dark with desire. Riley's breath hitched. They had done so much, but this was something Isabel had hinted at, something Riley had been too shy to ask for. Now, the thought of it made her ache with want. Yes, Riley breathed, arching her back. Please. Isabel kissed her way down Riley's body, her hands pushing up the soft cotton of her sleep shirt. She kissed her stomach, her hips, the inside of her thighs, each touch setting Riley's nerves on fire. Riley tangled her hands in Isabel's dark hair, her eyes closed, lost in sensation. When Isabel's mouth finally found her center, Riley cried out. It was nothing like fingers. It was softer, wetter, more intimate. Isabel's tongue moved against her with a slow, deliberate rhythm that had Riley bucking her hips off the bed within seconds. Isabel held her down, her grip firm and reassuring. The pleasure was overwhelming, all-consuming. Riley was reduced to a writhing, pleading mess, whispering Isabel's name like a prayer. She felt herself climbing higher and higher, until the world shattered into a million pieces of light and color. She screamed Isabel's name as the waves of her orgasm crashed over her, so intense she saw stars behind her eyelids. Isabel held her through it, whispering soothing words against her sensitive skin until Riley's trembling subsided. Then she crawled back up Riley's body and kissed her deeply, letting Riley taste herself on her lips. The act was so deeply intimate it brought tears to Riley's eyes. "I love you," Riley whispered, her voice raw with emotion. "I love you more," Isabel whispered back, holding her close. They fell asleep wrapped in each other, their legs entwined, their hearts beating in sync. The years didn't erase the memory of Oakhaven or the pain of the family she'd left behind. Riley sent letters to her mother every few months, though they were never answered. The hurt was a small, quiet scar on her heart. But the life she built with Isabel was so much bigger than that hurt. They graduated college. Riley, inspired by Agnes, started her own online business selling rare books. Isabel became a graphic artist, her work filled with the vibrant colors she had always brought into Riley's life. On their 5th anniversary, Isabel took Riley back to the orchard in Oakhaven. It was different in the daylight, and they were different people. They held hands openly as they walked to their oak tree. Isabel got down on one knee. Riley's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. "Riley," Isabel said, her own eyes shining, "you were the bravest person I ever met. You chose love over fear. You chose us over everything. You taught me what real courage looks like. Will you keep choosing me? Every day, for the rest of our lives? Will you marry me?" Riley couldn't speak. She just nodded, pulling Isabel up and kissing her with all the love and passion of their first kiss in the rain, a lifetime ago. They were married in Cedar Springs, in Agnes's bookstore, surrounded by friends, books, and the colorful art Isabel had created. Clara gave Riley away. Riley wore a simple white dress, and when she saw Isabel waiting for her under a canopy of fairy lights, wearing a sleek suit the color of pomegranates, she knew she had found her way home. Their life together wasn't always a perfect fairy tale. They had arguments about money and whose turn it was to do the dishes. They faced prejudice sometimes, but they faced it together, their bond a shield against the world. But every night, when they fell into bed, whether they were laughing or had just made up from a silly fight, Riley would look at the woman beside her. She would trace the lines of her face, now so familiar and so beloved, and she would remember the girl in the black and white world, staring at the oranges. Isabel was her pomegranate. Her complicated, messy, bursting with color, not their only fruit. And she was everything. The years beyond. Riley never went back to Oakhaven. She thought sometimes of the orchard, of the rows of orange trees glowing in the late summer sun. In her mind they stayed frozen in time, untouched by the years, though she knew by now the branches would be gnarled, the fruit new and different each season. Her parents never wrote. Not once. That silence had become its own kind of letter, one Riley learned to fold away in her heart. Some days the ache was sharper than others, especially when she imagined her mother's face softening, just for a moment, if she had chosen differently. But regret was a language Riley no longer spoke. She had chosen love instead. With Isabel, she had built a life that wasn't always perfect. There were bills, arguments, and days when the world's cruelties pressed too close, but it was real, it was theirs, and it was filled with color. Isabel's art hung on their walls, bursting with shades Riley once couldn't have named. Their laughter echoed in the small rooms they called home. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, Riley would sit by the window, a book in her lap, and watch Isabel sketching by lamplight. And she would think of that first kiss under the storm, of the orchard, of the girl she once was, frightened, obedient, aching for a world she hadn't yet seen. That girl was gone. But Riley carried her like a shadow, a reminder of how far she had come and of the price she had paid. She reached for Isabel's hand, and Isabel squeezed back, as if to say, "I know. I'm here. We made it." And though the past still lingered, like the bitter aftertaste of fruit left too long on the tree, Riley tasted sweetness too, sweetness enough to last a lifetime.